The village of Oakmere is small, hidden between green hills and old stone walls. Life here is simple, the kind of place where everyone knows your name. But there's one story here that nobody can explain. A story that will break your heart and then fill it with something beautiful. Every morning, as the first light touches the old church tower, something strange happens. A dog walks down the empty road. Alone, he moves slowly, carefully. His head is low. His steps are uncertain. He is blind, completely blind. His eyes are white like clouds. He cannot see the road. He cannot see the people. He cannot see the danger. But he walks anyway. The villagers call him Shadow. And Shadow does something that seems impossible. Every single day, he walks 3 miles. The same path, the same direction. Never stopping, never turning back. No owner holds his leash. No voice calls his name. He just walks, alone, through the village, past the old farm, into the dark forest. For weeks, people watched from their windows. They saw Shadow walk by. They saw him stumble on loose stones. They saw him fall into muddy ditches. They saw him freeze when cars passed too close. His paws were often bloody. His fur was tangled with thorns. But he never stopped. He just got up and kept walking. People began to whisper, "Where is he going? Why does he do this? Who does he belong to?" Nobody had answers. Some said he was searching for his owner. Others thought he was simply lost in a world he could no longer see. But the truth was far more extraordinary than anyone imagined. One cold morning, a group of villagers decided to find out. 3 of them gathered at dawn. An old farmer named Henry, a young mother named Clara, and a boy named Leo. They stood in the misty road and waited. Right on time, Shadow appeared. He walked past them like they were not even there. His nose was pointing forward. His ears were still. He was on a mission. They followed him. Quietly, carefully. They did not want to disturb him. Shadow walked past the bakery, past the small stone bridge, past the field where sheep were waking up. He knew every turn, every curve. He had memorized the road with his feet, with his heart. After 1 mile, Shadow reached the edge of the forest. The trees were tall and dark. The path was covered with wet leaves. It was dangerous for any dog, but for a blind dog, it was terrifying. Shadow stepped into the darkness without hesitation. He ducked under low branches. He stepped over roots. He walked like someone guided by an invisible hand. The villagers followed. Their hearts were pounding. One wrong step and Shadow could fall into a ravine. But he never did. He walked with purpose, with devotion. After another mile, Shadow stopped. He lifted his head. His nose twitched. He made a soft whining sound. Then he turned off the path, into a small clearing. The villagers held their breath. In the middle of the clearing stood a grave, a simple grave, a wooden cross, old flowers that had dried long ago. A name was carved into the wood: Jacob Hartley, beloved father and friend. Shadow walked straight to the grave. He did not need eyes to find it. He laid down on the cold earth. He placed his head on the mound, and he sighed, a deep, heavy sigh, like he had finally reached home. Henry the farmer wiped his eyes. Clara, the young mother, covered her mouth. Leo, the boy, knelt in the grass. They understood now. This was Shadow's owner. This was the man he loved. And even after death, Shadow came to visit him. Every single day. 3 miles. Blind. Alone. Just to lie beside the one who was gone. But that was not the end of the story. Because Shadow did something else. Something that changed everything. After a few minutes of lying on the grave, Shadow stood up. He turned his head. His ears lifted. He made a soft sound. Not a bark, more like a gentle call. And then, from behind a bush, something moved. A small shape emerged. A cat. Thin. Dirty. Shaking from the cold. She was a stray. Her ribs showed through her fur. She had a tiny kitten with her. A baby so small its eyes were barely open. Shadow walked toward them. Slowly, gently. When he reached the cat, he nudged her with his nose. Then he turned and walked back to the grave. The cat followed. The kitten followed. They trusted him completely. Then Shadow did something remarkable. He walked to a hollow log near the grave. Inside the log was food, scraps of bread, pieces of meat, things Shadow had carried in his mouth during his long walks, things he had gathered from the village. Not for himself, for them. Clara began to cry. Not soft tears, deep sobs. This blind dog, this grieving soul. He was not just visiting a grave. He was caring for a stray cat and her kitten. He was feeding them, protecting them, loving them. The villagers watched as Shadow settled down between the grave and the hollow log. The cat curled up next to him. The kitten climbed onto his back. Shadow closed his blind eyes. And for the first time since they had followed him, he looked truly peaceful. Leo walked forward slowly. Shadow lifted his head but did not growl. He did not feel threatened. He just sensed a new presence. Leo sat down beside him. He gently touched Shadow's head. The dog's tail wagged, softly, weakly, but it wagged. Henry knelt down too. He looked at the grave. He remembered Jacob Hartley, an old man who had died 6 months ago, a quiet man who lived alone with his dog, a man who had no family, no visitors, only Shadow. Now Henry understood why Shadow had survived. He had found a new purpose, 2 small lives that needed him, 2 souls as lost as he was, and in saving them, he had saved himself. Clara took off her scarf and wrapped it around the mother cat. The cat did not resist. She was too tired, too grateful. Leo gently picked up the tiny kitten and placed it inside his jacket to keep it warm. Shadow tilted his head. He listened. He sniffed the air. He was checking, making sure they were safe. Only then did he relax. The villagers stayed there for an hour. They sat with Shadow and his unlikely family. The sun climbed higher. The forest came alive with birdsong. And in that small clearing, something sacred happened. Grief transformed into love. Loss transformed into hope. When it was time to leave, they did not call Shadow. They did not force him. They simply stood up and started walking back. And Shadow followed, just like always. But this time, he was not alone. The mother cat walked beside him. The kitten was carried safely in Leo's hands. They were all going home. Back in the village, the story spread faster than fire. Neighbors came out of their houses. They saw Shadow walking back with his new family. They saw the cat rubbing against his legs. They saw the kitten sleeping in the boy's arms. And they understood. Something beautiful had been revealed that day. A blind dog had shown them what real love looks like. Love that does not see obstacles. Love that does not forget. Love that crosses 3 miles every single day just to say, I am still here. I am still with you. From that day forward, Shadow was never alone again. Clara adopted the cat and her kitten. She named the cat Grace and the kitten Miracle. And Shadow, the blind dog who walked 3 miles every day, became the most famous dog in Oakmere. Not because he was blind, not because he was sad, but because he was the purest soul anyone had ever known. Every morning, Shadow still walks, but now Grace walks with him, shoulder to shoulder, step by step. They visit the grave together. They lie together. They remember together. And when the walk is done, they return to a warm home, to full bowls, to soft beds, to people who love them. What Shadow teaches us is simple and profound. Love does not need eyes to see. It does not need words to speak. It only needs a heart willing to walk the distance, no matter how far, no matter how dark. Real love never quits. If this story touched your heart, then you are exactly the kind of person this world needs more of. Someone who believes in loyalty, in kindness, in the quiet power of a blind dog who refused to forget. Please hit that like button. Subscribe to Dog and Cat Universe Hub, and share this story with someone who needs to believe in love again. I will see you in the next one.